Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday night Anam Cara Meditation program. With all my heart and with all my love, I welcome you to our program this evening. And so glad you were able to join us. And let's see. Right now, I'm going to switch over so we can let everybody show themselves and be heard and everything. Sadhana's moving along. Meditation's happening. These are challenging times. I mean, kudos to all of you for doing practices, however frequently or infrequently. There's so many demands on everybody's time and attention. And so being able to set aside time for something that competes with so many other draws to our attention, that becomes a key component of sadhana, of meditation practice, is being able to hold that level of commitment. So bless you, and bless you for coming this evening and sharing the power of your practice and presence. So thank you. Anything going on? We have time. I just thought, we haven't had a chance to chat or if anybody had questions or anything like that. So this is a fine time to be able to do that. So any questions, thoughts, comments about practice? Well, we're gonna be doing some chanting tonight. And I don't know so much because, just the limitations of Zoom, we can't do chants like we used to at the Anam Cara Center and everybody's chanting together. And so I think some people said, well, they just like to listen. And that's fine, but really chanting is a practice. And it's not for just listening. Listening's nice, but where you are, you can join in. Right? You can put on headphones, turn up the speakers, clap your hands, get up and dance. I mean, do whatever you like with it. But the chant and that as a practice is different from, for instance, just listening to mantra or saying mantras silently to oneself. Because when we're giving voice to that, we're now running prana, that life force energy connected to the breath, through the mantra and through the vibration really into every cell in our body. So it really is part of the practice to be able to do that. So to get the full benefit of it, I really encourage you to just chant as much as you want, as loudly as you want. And since nobody can hear you, there's no risk, right? So chant away.
Hey, Lawrence, I have a question for you about
Yeah.
that. So I'm curious, you've talked a lot about this, how just the chant or the mantra itself has a certain the sound itself has a vibrational impact. How important is it or helpful to really understand the meaning of the words and the kind of, what it's actually pointing to? And if you
Right.
don't know the meaning, does it diminish, the effectiveness of it?
Oh, that's a great question, because a lot of what that has to do with is how distracted is the mind by that. Our mind is attached to words having meaning. And in fact, for most ordinary language, meaning is intimately connected to the power of the word. When you get into mantra, that's less so. Some mantras have no meaning whatsoever. The Shakti, in other words, the power of consciousness encoded in the mantra, is what is creating the effect. And so bija mantras, seed mantras, Om, this primal mantra that is really the birth or origin of all other mantras. It said the entire Sanskrit alphabet comes out of Om. Om has no translatable meaning, yet it has tremendous power, both for chanting, for listening to that throb of consciousness taking sound form. And so what's important is there's a level of understanding that's important. Not so much the understanding of the meaning of words, but the understanding of the practice of mantra. Because mantra is consciousness vibrating in a particular way coming from source. Most language that we're familiar with is mind-born. The language is mind-born. The reference in the language is all connected to mind. And so that's what the mind hones in on. And that's very different. That's fine for ordinary language and use. And certain mantras have meanings. But again, the power of Om Namah Shivaya, the power of Om, the power of Om Tare Tutere Tore Soha, the green Tara mantra, is in the throb itself of the mantra. And so whether we know word by word the translations or anything like that, not so important. What really tends to be important is that we get that, oh, we're supposed to let go of the mind. See, to enter the vehicle of mantra, this is why when we talk about the practice of mantra, and we talk about entering the vehicle of mantra, because mantra arises from the infinite and returns to the infinite. It's a gift of the infinite to its finite emanations as a way to come back to knowing their infinitude once again. We're wandering around thinking we're just this little lost, or maybe even worse, we think we've found. But we're caught in these limitations. And so the infinite has to, project that power, that knowing, encoded in sound. But if you enter the vehicle of mantra and then really go completely into it, meaning let go of the mind, just become, entering the vehicle of mantra means I'm becoming identified with just the throb of that power, meaning I am the mantra, the source of the mantra. I am that tatwamasi, thou art that, hamsa, I am that. These are all pointing at these more and more refined levels of awareness that bring us into the direct knowing of our infinitude of being. Because as long as the ordinary mind is operating, it's operating with the firm conviction, I'm just a guy sitting here, I'm just a woman sitting there, I'm just this, I'm just that. It's doing that even unconsciously. We may not even be thinking that, but the truth is every thought we have has a limited I sense bound to it. Even if it's the sky is blue. Seems like such a neutral thought. Who's the perceiver of the blue sky? Unlimited I, looking at the sky, saying it's blue. Every one of our ordinary thoughts has limited I awareness attached to it and contracts our identity into that. So the understanding of mantra isn't so much the meaning of particular words of mantra, but to understand, to enter into mantra is to enter into a river of consciousness that is flowing back into the sea of consciousness, the infinitude of being. And the more we join that, meaning the more we're identified with it, the more we're letting go of the identification as I'm just this, I'm that, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm whatever. And just go, I'm that infinite, I'm that throb. Oh my. And then just see what blossoms from that. The infinitude of being. In that is the boundlessness of love, the boundlessness of compassion, the infinitude of wisdom. This is our nature. That's all in the mantra. It's all in the mantra. Why don't we pick it up? Because we're caught in the mind, and we're caught in the mind's view of mantra.
Okay. So I heard a story this week about a guy who was he was accused of being horrible. How do you get out of that?
I don't know the particulars of the case and what's going on with that, but it's a classic story. A master is talking about the power of mantra and the power of words, and somebody gets up and says, "Oh, what are you talking about? If I say bread, am I going to get bread?" And the guru says to him, "Oh, shut up, you asshole!" And the guy blows up. And then the guru goes, "Oh, words don't have power. You told me words don't have power. Look at what I said to you, and you completely lost it.
Yeah.
So we have to understand then, yes, even on a limited level, words have power. And they have the power to affect our inner reality, our outer reality. Uh, but the highest level of that, and so if you study the Shiva Sutras, yes, ordinary language shapes our reality. And part of it, we have to understand that's what's going on. That's what I'm saying. Even unconsciously, our mind is running a language about the limitations of who we are in the moment. So meditation practice is a way of illuminating that, changing that, really seeing it, and then really practicing. The repetition of mantra repeated with the awareness of I am the mantra, I am the infinite. That's why, sages, saints, gurus across traditions, that component, it's not just enough to say the words. That'll have a certain focusing effect. That'll help quiet the mind. But we want to cut through the very identity, the false identity, that is underlying the suffering that we create for ourselves and others. And that means shifting out of that limited I awareness. The ordinary mind is going to stay there. This is where it gets a little bit tricky for people, because you don't get inflated. The mind doesn't, it's not the mind that becomes the infinite. The mind becomes the servant of the infinite. The ordinary mind still has its little identity. But you go, but that's not me, any more than I can say, oh, I have a pinky. It's an integral part of me. But am I limited by a pinky? If I walk through the life going, I'm just a little pinky. Well, they'd take me away. Yet, that's what we're doing. We're walking around going, we're little, but because everybody's thinking that way, we seem a little bigger than some and a little smaller than others. What to do? But compared to the ground of being, compared to the truth of who we are, oh my God, we're all walking around in this delusion and then trying to compensate for it by consuming, by dominating, by seeking power, wealth, control, all these things that make up for just how puny we've made ourselves. Come back to your divine nature, and then you can live in harmony with all others as your own self.
Yeah, I was just thinking that AI, as it is right now, it's all about words and visuals and sounds. And it's creating all sorts of fears and all sorts of interests. Some of it's pretty nifty to help do work, but boy, does it feel like a superhuman being, not really enlightened, but just really pulling in with. I just see it getting into the language part, because I'm so tuned into language.
Right.
I find my defenses and everything just going awry,
Right, right. Well, and it's also to expand the context of that. So we're in an age that in the Eastern tradition is called Kali Yuga. It's the dark age. And what makes it dark? Well, ignorance. It's the depths of ignorance of not knowing the truth of who we are and being confused about that. And what sustains that is especially looked at as language. That it's words and both self-talk and being inundated by words. And it was predicted that in Kali Yuga, words would be everywhere, right? So we have radios, TVs, we have countless, they weren't talking about that a couple of thousand years ago when they were predicting this with Kali Yuga, but they were saying that's going to flood the environment. We have to become established. The only sort of safe refuge is to become established in the truth that's beyond words. So there was a story that this great enlightened king was holding court, and this grotesque figure comes dancing into his king. He's an enlightened king too. And this grotesque figure comes dancing into the court. And all the courtiers are, oh my gosh, grab him, kill him, what's he doing? And it was a naked guy holding his tongue and holding a big phallus, his phallus. Right? Yogis don't flinch at such things, right? So there he is, holding his phallus and his tongue and dancing around. And the courtiers go, what are you talking about? And he goes, that's a harbinger. That's a harbinger of Kali Yuga. And it's showing the way through. You have to control your tongue and you have to control your sexual urges, because they're both going to get you in deep trouble in Kali Yuga. So what do we see? Everywhere. And now, those realities born by words are being augmented by technology. And so those who are at prey for being influenced by that. I mean, we see the power of words, the propaganda, the distortion, the disinformation campaigns. This is all Kali Yuga. And why Kali Yuga was also saying you have to have extreme discrimination, extreme viveka, extreme discernment between the real and the unreal, the true and the false, the eternal and the ephemeral. Because the ephemeral is getting more and more inflamed. And where's our safe ground? It's in being. It's in consciousness. It's going beyond the mind and then transforming the mind so that it becomes transparent to that highest nature of consciousness. So that the words born of that are reflective of that highest, purest wisdom, not the ignorance of bondage, of delusion, of contracted awareness, of anger, of irritability. All those things are born of ignorance. So that's why we have to keep coming back to what's our state. What's the state that we're in moment by moment that will allow us to walk grounded in that reality, even if there's nobody around validating it? That's what Buddha was talking about as well. Even if you're on your own, become established in that. And mantra means that which protects. What does it protect us from? The mind in identification with ignorance, with bondage, with limited identifications, whether it's the projections of others or our own projections. That's what we walk through. Projections upon projections upon projections. So we do the practices both to help clarify the mind. That's why it's often talked about, clarification. It's like when you clarify butter to get pure ghee. You take all the particles, all the lumps, all the impurities out until you get this pure oil. So the pure mind can then be transparent to one's true nature. Because that wisdom, that's in each and every one of you. That boundless compassion and love, that's the essence of who you are. The only thing that prevents us from living that are those thoughts. Oh, I'm not that. What's he talking about? I know that. I'm not that. Maybe someday I could be somewhere near that. No, I'm not that. That's the automatic response. Because it's true for the mind. The mind is talking about its reality. So discernment, discrimination, viveka, is that ability to differentiate between, that's the mind's reality. That's not the ultimate reality. And the more the mind gets clarified and begins to see that, it's just a transparent pane of glass to that luminous consciousness emanating from you. This is why archetypally you saw halos and, light around enlightened beings. Huh? It was a symbolic way of depicting that, that pure light of their divine nature is shining into this world. And what does the ordinary mind do? Goes, that's them, that's not me. Well, that was that person 3,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, that's not me. And so it sustains its contracted, painful reality. And if we can't see it for us as ourself, how are we going to see it for everyone else? So the purification process that clarifies the mind allows us to not only see the truth of who we are, but then we can see the truth of all beings, of all creation. Creator, creation, creatures, all one. So every time we repeat mantra, we're helping to clear the lens of the mind. On the other side, every time we go, I'm this and that, now we're putting soot back on. So we start to see, who's getting ahead of one another? Am I putting on more soot or am I washing more off? And we've been doing this for lifetimes. That's why it's not just, I should have an insight and it'd be done. No, these layers of ignorance and the patterns we've become identified, that's an accretion of lifetimes and lifetimes. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra starts out, a yogi is prepared to do this for lifetimes. Because it's a binary choice. We're either moving towards freedom or we're moving more into bondage. Moment by moment. Just look. Is my pattern of thinking helping me to be free and to see more clearly? Or is it holding me in bondage? That's the sword of discrimination. And that's why whether it's in the Hindu tradition, the Buddhist tradition, that sword of discrimination, very sharp. So every time we practice, this is the sacred nature of it. That's discrimination again. Think of how easy it is to lose discrimination. I'm supposed to do this. I should just do that. Oh gosh, I got to drag myself out of bed and go do that. Where is that coming from? What's our attitude of approach? So practice is this exquisite cloth that weaves together every thread of our life and exalts it, uplifts it. This can be so refined if we change our vision. We too often think we got to change everybody and everything out there. And in this age, in Kali Yuga, the central practice that was recommended, mantra. Because it was also recognized in Kali Yuga, people weren't going to spend 12 hours a day doing yoga and ascetic practices. They needed something easy. Yeah, people are not so interested in Kali Yuga. It wasn't like in Sati Yuga where they'd, stand on one leg for 700 years and attain something. No, that's gone. Well, can I get it in a weekend? Or maybe even a Friday night. So it's got to be accessible. So the divine said, okay, anytime, any place, I will meet you right there. I'll meet you right there. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Kaima. Om. God said, I'll make it simple. One syllable. Ah. The greatest mantra. Ah. Ah. Just simply means I. The divine I. Boundlessly loving. All embracing. Ah. Ah. What if the first thing that arose when you saw anybody was ah? What if the first thing that arose when you looked in the mirror in the morning was ah? Why not? Because the mind wants to think something else and then experience the fruit of that. And then probably blame somebody else for it because it also does that. How simple can it be? Ah, ah, ah. Just walk around for 20 minutes in a day. Just everything you see, everything you hear. Just go, ah, ah. It'll transform your state. And then you can start doing it silently. It becomes more and more inclusive. They start out just the beautiful things. Then the not so beautiful things. Even the ugly things. Even the wretched things. Ein od milvado. Nothing left out. Only the mind can leave things out. The mind was created by the divine to know that exclusiveness. The infinite could only know unity consciousness. It would be bound. Its way of knowing non-unity consciousness is you. It's you. You are the instrument of the divine for knowing separation and then seeking union again. To revel in that. That's why we're here. Some people are earlier on in their soul's journey, and they're still exploring what it is to be different and separate, and everything like that. That's fine. They're still essentially divine. So what we're going to do now is just chant the mantra Om Namah Shivaya for a few minutes, and let everything else dissolve. Just keep offering it to the mantra. You may envision it as a fire, and everything is an offering to that fire. You may see it as a river of grace, and everything is offered to that river of grace. And now we'll be chanting Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. We'll chant for a few minutes. Om Namah Shivaya is one of the mantras that has a meaning. That's a hint for the mind. It means I bow to or I revere the auspicious one, the divine within. It brings the mind into right relationship with our infinitude of being. But more importantly, the mantra is a throb of that consciousness itself, of the infinitude of being, the infinitude of the auspicious one. Shiva simply means the auspicious one. It's the truth of who you are. It's the truth of what all beings are. It's the truth of what all creation is. And so when we can really fully enter the mantra, meaning we become identified with it, we merge that there's the source of the mantra, the infinite. There's the mantra, the throb of that awareness. And there's the repeater of the mantra, you. And they all come together. They all merge. So there's just the one. That's all there is. Even if other things are happening, we know, oh, Shiva, we delight in every emanation, every aspect of our boundless creativity, our Shakti, dancing before us. So we enter that state. Mantra starts out as a sound form as we chant. Then it becomes a subtler form as we repeat it silently as we start to meditate with it. Then in time, it may disappear completely, and there's just an awareness of I, a boundless I, a boundless sense of being. That repeated throb of the consciousness of being is the subtler form of mantra. We're going to dissolve into that and see where that goes into the most sublime mystery, unspeakable. Shri Kali Mahadevi Ki Jai. Om Namah Shivaya. Kali Mahadevi ki jai. We end with this prayer, and may all our practices truly benefit everyone, and may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. Namaste. To practice, delighting in practice, practicing enthusiastically. Remember, enthusiasm means filled with spirit. To know that. So keep coming home to yourself. You're sublime, exquisite, loving, generous, patient, kind, beautiful self. By taking refuge in the gift of yourself, to yourself. Mantra, mantra. Aham, hamsa, soham, Om Namah Shivaya. Stay with one. Go all the way till it dissolves completely, and you dissolve as well. I want to thank you all for coming and being ones who do practices and walk the fruits of those practices into the world, a world in desperate need of people who see through the delusion, see through the power of sound and thought in the ordinary sense. It's called Matrika Shaktis. In the Shivaite tradition, Matrika Shaktis, little mothers. It's the power of words to give birth to realities. We hold a thought, and we become the thought, we enter the reality. So practice, wisdom, the gifts of the great sages and saints, enlightened beings. Cut through that. We get to see through the veil. Get free of it and live that freedom into the world, into our families, to our work, our everyday life. It's all equally divine. All the one. So again, thank you. Thank you for being ones who pursue that direct knowing and living it into the world. Thank you for coming this evening and sharing the power of your practices, your Shakti. And thank you for the many ways you support Anam Cara and share what we offer through YouTube and e-newsletters, etc. So thank you. We're just trying to put out as much as we can to keep that light on throughout the world, right? So thank you. And then I look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks.